All right, everybody. First time doing two videos in one day, and I'm gonna talk about a review here on a movie. It's part of a franchise, and I did get this years ago when this came out on Triple Feature, and I'm talking about the Psycho films, and I'm gonna talk about Psycho 4: The Beginning. Memories going down memory lane. I remember growing up as a kid in the 90s, early 90s, when there was USA Up All Night. It was originally hosted by Rhonda Shear. When they aired Psycho 4: The Beginning on there, Gilbert Gottfried was the host then. And that was my introduction to Psycho 4. I had already seen the first three films. This film is about, basically when you see the subtitle, The Beginning, this is basically about Norman Bates telling his life story, because in the movie he calls in onto this radio station and they are talking with a former inmate that's on probation for matricide, which is what makes boys kill their mothers. So Norman Bates calls into this radio station. He calls in as Ed. Just not going to try to spoil as much as possible about this, because maybe some people have not actually seen the film. It's was never in theater. It was made for I think Showtime back in the day. But I mean, you got some great performances. You got, of course, you got Anthony Perkins coming back for one final time. You got a teenage Henry Thompson, as you know him from Elliot from E.T. and The Quest, and you know a couple other films he's been in. And then you got Olivia Hussey, who was in Black Christmas, the 1990 It. She plays Norma Bates, which is the deranged mother of Norma Bates. This tells you the whole story, pretty much, about Norman going through his childhood, you know, how he was treated, how his upbringing was when, you know, him as a child, how his mother treated him, you know, the whole 9 yards. This is exactly good prequel. It's sort of a prequel story in with a sequel, because this is the sequel to Psycho 3, because they do mention in one scene about what happened with Norman Bates, you know, like a couple years ago, and you know, so and so. We're not going to go into that, but this film here is just it's one of my favorites. It's got to be, out of the four Anthony Perkins Psycho films, this and Part 2 are my favorite. It's really, really cool how things, you know, you go from Norman at, of course Norman Bates is married in this. He's living with his wife. It's a house that she had from a previous marriage. And it's really neat, because you go from, you know, Norman Bates calling in on, I think it's, I forgot what the radio station name is on here. They don't say it on the back of the cover, but he calls in on this radio station, and then he goes ahead and, you know, it goes from a flashback showing what he was doing when he was a child, and, you know, these random scenarios. First, you go from the first one where he does his first killing to, you know, with introduction to Norma Bates, and then you go from there to it was one, I think it was his second killing, which was an older woman that he was basically making out with in a car right outside the Bates Motel. Just, I think it was done really, really neat how they did this sort of prequel, sequel type film. But why I'm calling it a prequel, sequel, is because you're going back and telling how Norman became what he was, because none of us really knew how it all happened. I mean, you heard about it in the previous films, but you never actually witnessed it on film before, how he was actually, you know, abused and stuff like that. There was even one point in the film where, you know, there was some type of like sexual relationship between him and his mother that they did touch up on. Of course, you know, it was very, very, you know, very, very light. I mean, you're not going to go ahead and, you know, show, you know, like anything too graphic with, I think, with maybe with the budget or something they had. I mean, this was shown on, I believe it was on Showtime or Cinemax or something back in the day, but I saw it on USA Up All Night. I think it was really cool how we get to the climax of the film where, you know, he basically confronts all his nightmares, his, you know, his demons, his, you know, his past, and is able to conquer that, and without even explaining anything about really what the whole synopsis of the film is. I don't want to go into that because then, you know, then you ruin the whole entire movie for everybody. But yeah, Psycho 4 is definitely a must-see if you have seen the first three films. It is the conclusion of the Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates character. You can easily watch all four of these films and forget about the 1998. I had to stop and think there for a minute. You can watch all four of the Anthony Perkins Psycho films and forget about the 1998 remake, which was, pardon me, trash. That's what it was. No offense, I know Vince Vaughn played Norman Bates in that, but that's just the way it is. You know, most remakes aren't as good as the original, but there are some remakes that are better than the original, or just as good as the original. I did like the remake to Dawn of the Dead, but going off topic there, Psycho 4 The Beginning is a definitely must-see. I actually got it in this 3-pack. I want to pick up the Shout or Scream Factory edition of Psycho 4 because I want to hear Olivia Hussey just talk about the film, and I believe Henry Thomas is also on the audio commentary as well, and I think Mick Garris, the director of Psycho 4 The Beginning, is also on there. I would love to just sit there and watch the movie on a weekend that I'm off from work and just, you know, hear their stories of what it was like on set, maybe, or the different scenes that they were in, and, you know, so and so. But definitely, I mean, Psycho 4 is definitely one of my favorites. I definitely would recommend it. If you haven't seen it already, then you guys don't know what you're missing. I mean, it concludes the Anthony Perkins Psycho story. So, yeah, that's as much as I'm gonna say. And hey, what else? Great film, great franchise. One of my top 3. This is Oracle 684. Coming back to you again tonight, and I'll see you guys back here later next week for or next weekend for another video. Don't know what movie I'm going to review next. We'll have to wait and see, and it could be a surprise. So, hey, take care and have a good night.